The final season, episode 2 of Succession is over, but we are just getting started here on post-show recaps. That's right, everybody. It is the Succession podcast on post-show recaps, where we're breaking down the HBO show's final season, episode by episode and podcast by podcast. If you want commercial-free versions of these Succession podcasts, hey, go to patreon.com/post-show recaps. Sign up at any level. You will get commercial-free versions of the Succession podcast at every level. Once again, that is patreon.com/post-show recaps. I'm Josh Wigler. Today, we are talking about Succession Season 4, Episode 2, Rehearsal. And I am joined here by my two co-hosts, Jess Sterling and Grace Leader, who are not podcasters. They're effing pirates. We're here for all you lily-livered listeners.
Well, we're calling the podcast listeners lily liver.
Yeah, that's right. Is that not something I should be doing?
Just be careful. They might pull us apart like a cheese string.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this episode did something that I did not expect to happen, which was get me real hungry for a Polly-O string cheese.
Right.
This podcast not brought to you by Polly-O string cheese, but we're open. You know, just in case.
It's open like a cheese string.
Just in case.
I could never be happier than if we got sponsored by cheese.
I think that would probably be pretty good. Oh my gosh, Jess, 2 episodes down of Succession's final season. We are through rehearsal. How are you feeling at this hour? We are live on YouTube, postshowrecaps.com/YouTube, breaking this down immediately after it's ended. Are you feeling okay? Do you want to sing some karaoke to relieve any kind of stress that you may have?
I will just say I would have picked a better song than Connor did. I don't know. His song was
Leonard
such a
Cohen
downer.
Disrespect that's happening
really.
right now.
It was such a downer. Like, you got to pump up the jam, you know? You got to, like, bring the mood up.
That's show
He was
number
not
2 of the
doing
week that is then Leonard Cohen, right?
Yeah,
With
Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Ted Lasso was just hanging out with Leonard Cohen, and now
Yep.
here's Alan Ruck doing his Leonard Cohen impression. Pretty good, I thought, Grace. I thought it was pretty
so
good.
too. Man, this episode was sad. This is a sad episode.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just, it's like family reunion and just not great. Didn't end great.
It is sad. It didn't end great, depending on who you are. I think for certain characters, it ended better than it did for others. Whereas I do think if there's a silver lining, Grace, some of the characters who did not make it out of this episode particularly well, at least are used to living without love. So, you know.
No, I really don't know if you can point to a single character who had a super great outcome this episode. Like Kendall is like grinning in the car, but he might have just blown up the whole deal. He might have just this whole thing is about like whether or not Madsson will push back, whether he will walk away if you try to renegotiate the deal. And I think there's a very real possibility that he will. So I don't know if anybody had a great end to the episode. Maybe Roman, who's like, I don't know.
I'm with you. I think that maybe this episode was very demonstrative of the idea that you shouldn't just assume that you could, like, you cannot call him K-Roy and get away with it. I think if you just assume that level of familiarity with Kendall, Kendall's going to go full Joker. So we're going to go full bore here on this episode of the Succession podcast. Of course, this is just the first shot that we've got on Succession Season 4, Episode 2, the programming shout out here. We are live on postshowrecaps.com/YouTube for everybody. You can go and you can watch this back on VOD if you are not joining us live. If you want to watch the YouTube version, subscribe to our YouTube page. That would be very, very fun. And hey, if you're here live, give us your feedback as we are going. We would love to get that, and we can incorporate that into the show as it comes up. So this is going to be our first reactions to Season 4, Episode 2. Tomorrow, coming up, Grace, you are being joined once again by the great Dr. Amanda for your deep dive into Season 4, Episode 2. I'm to understand a special guest may be joining you as well.
Yeah, Mike Blue.
Woo!
He's going to join us. Very excited.
But I hope that Mike has prepared some karaoke.
Yeah.
Knowing Mike, he will bring the goods. So Mike Bloom joining Grace and Amanda in the deep dive into this episode. They will go over everything with a fine-tooth comb. Grace, you are joining me as a special guest on the PSR Versus podcast this week with LaTanya Starks, comparing this week's episode of Succession with episode 2 of season 2 of Yellow Jackets. No spoilers for Yellow Jackets, but I don't know.
They had food at that bar.
Episodes. Yeah.
They had food at that bar. They also had food on Yellow Jackets.
Yeah. So
yeah.
we'll talk about talk about all the edible complexes that are happening across both of these shows. I will be joined midweek by the great Rob Sesternino on our show, where we will be talking about all things. Cousin Greg probably is the one who has the best night of everybody, I would say. So let's see how Rob reacts to Cousin Greg effectively firing somebody for the very first time.
Effectively? I mean, he fired her. I don't know if it was effectively.
She was fired.
Yeah. She was fired.
That's an effective firing.
Kind of. She
didn't take it well, but that
didn't get killed.
Fired.
Yeah. He didn't kill him. So
he didn't get pulled apart like string cheese.
That is a plus. That is a plus. Yet. That is an operative word for sure. We will wrap this whole thing up at the end of the week with another wrap-up show going over headlines. We'll do some Reddit deep dives. Grace, did you hear about Agent Tom Wamsgams on our wrap-up show last week?
That's very fun. I like that.
Undercut Secret Agent Tom. Who knows? We don't really think that's happening, but it was fun to talk about. That's really like a big shitposty podcast here on the Succession beat. So if you want to join us, that will also be on YouTube. postshowrecaps.com/YouTube. So that is what you can look forward to in the days ahead as we are breaking this episode down. Are we ready to break this episode down, Jess?
I'm so excited.
All right. Well, I'm excited as well. Let's do the quick plot recap here on Succession Season 4, Episode 2, Rehearsal. And yo-ho-ho indeed, as Pirate Santa is officially back on the high seas. Following the death of his PGM power play, Logan Roy is back at ATN, whipping his ship back into winning shape against all the lily-livered losers out there. Also happening at ATN, the rise of Carrie, adding TV anchor to her ever-expanding resume. Unfortunately for Carrie, she is no Veronica Corningstone, and Logan knows it. He tasks Tom with breaking the news to Carrie that she is not ready for primetime, and naturally, Tom tasks Greg with that task. In Cousin Greg's defense, he manages to break the news to Carrie without being turned into a polio string cheese. And speaking of human dairy products, let's turn to the Roy siblings, specifically Siobhan, who is looking to wait for it, milk some more money. I'm just trying to do dairy jokes here, folks. Out of Waystar's sale, Shiv and eventually Kendall agree to an alliance with Stewie and Sandy, ready to vote no on the deal with Matsson in order to force Logan back to the bargaining table. Roman's not exactly thrilled about this maneuver, but he doesn't have as much of a leg to stand on anymore once Ken and Shiv find out that Rome has been sending warm texts with their dad. Take care, indeed. These conflicting agendas eventually all collide at the same place that all conflicting agendas go to die, karaoke. It's the night before Connor's wedding, and all he wants to do is sing a tune or two, like in the movies. One Leonard Cohen number later, Logan's in the booth, but rather than belt out New York, New York, he sings for his supper, imploring his kids to vote yes on the Gojo deal. Alas, it remains a no. He does not get what he wants. Or does he? As the episode ends, Roman Roy comes home to Logan, tail tucked between his legs, ready to hear out dear old dad. Logan's planning to meet with Matsson on the morrow, and not only does he want Romulus in attendance, he needs Romulus in attendance, and that is how it shakes out in Rehearsal, Grace.
I can't believe that they were all in a karaoke room. That's like I love that. I did not have on my bingo card of Succession locations. We love to talk about this when we're rewatching the show. That's such a travel show early on, and now there's an episode that I will always remember where they basically have real therapy, like they tried earlier on in season 2, I think, but in a karaoke bar. That's amazing.
Jess, were you hoping for more out of a karaoke episode of Succession? There's a lot of Carrie.
Yeah, a lot of Carrie in this karaoke episode. Yeah, I mean, I kind of was wishing that they were all doing a group number when Logan walked in. That was like, if I could wish for something and hope for something, that's what it would have been. But there's a lot of singing on this show. We got L to the OG. We have Honesty. Like, there's a lot of singing on this show.
That's a lonely word.
Yeah, I was a little sad that we didn't get a group number. What about like a Spice Girls number? You got 4 siblings. We could have spiced it up. A Beatles number.
If you want to sell off Waystar. Yeah, I
hold
feel
on.
like that would work.
There are 5
Spice Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Wow, who's the Connor Roy of the Spice Girls that we just left out? Well, sorry, Sporty Spice.
Yes.
Apologies. but it's pretty clearly you.
Yeah.
Pretty clearly you. No, it's a really eventful episode, I think, Jess, where we are, we saw the Roy kids rally together to make a play together. Will they be able to hold it together? And they mostly do through this episode, except we start to see the fractures already. And it's clear that Roman is the one who is going to crack first. And I don't know if I expected him to like crack all the way back to dad by the end of the episode, but here we are.
Yeah, very hanging on by threads, it felt like this alliance was throughout the entire episode, right? Shiv is really upset with her father and Tom about the whole him basically getting all of the lawyers in New York on his side. You know, they can't work with Shiv. So she's the first one to be like, nah, we are squashing this. We're going to make it really tough on him. Kendall, of course, joins her next. And I think that we've talked about this time and time again. Roman is not able to stand up for himself on his own. He needs backup. And so, of course, he is quickly outnumbered and goes with the plan. But it doesn't surprise me that it takes one meeting with his father in person to get him to go meet his dad, right? Like he is the one I love anytime we get all the Roys in a room together. I think this is such a strong ensemble show that when you get all the Roys in a room, I'm talking about Austerlitz in season, right? We have the therapy scene. This felt so similar to that. And Roman is constantly like, yeah, you're trying to apologize, Dad. Like, please tell us your apology. He's rooting for Logan in that scene. So it didn't exactly surprise me to see him joining Logan by the end of the episode. I was still disappointed, but not exactly surprising.
Grace, Roman is pitching softballs at Logan in this karaoke meeting. He's like, just say you're
what else are you sorry for? What else are you sorry for? Yeah, Italy,
and
you know what I really like through the first two episodes, that Roman is trying to branch out. He's trying to do his own thing. He wants to start the 100, and he is the last one of the 3 children to get on board with this idea.
4 children.
And 4 children. and then he, in this episode, he just wants the deal to be done so that they decided to buy, Pierce, and now let's just do that thing. Let's just get our money and go do that thing that we said we were going to do. And so I feel like he's trying, and his 2 siblings are like kind of ganging up. They're like teaming up to like be like, no. And so I do, where I am not actually worried about Roman going to meet with Madsen and this whole thing with Logan. Like the offer to come in to ATN, I think, Logan says like, you need to know who you are. You're not PGM, and I do think that's like, I think that has been Roman, like everything up to essentially the end of season 3. And I feel like where I'm now seeing potentially this trajectory is that like Roman be like, no, that's not like, just being under you, working for, is not me. He can be involved in going to meet Madsen essentially to try and make sure that like they don't scare off Madsen from walking. Like I'm going to be forced to open the negotiation, but don't walk. Like, don't worry. Like, I thought it was very interesting that Roman actually doesn't get the call from Madsen, because I actually think that we can talk about we'll talk about Kendall and getting the call from Madsen and the deal. But from the Roman perspective, I actually think like what we wanted for so long, what I wanted, like when we were watching season 3 weekly and coming, I was like, I want Roman to have a spine. I want him to stand up to his father. Yeah. And he finally does it. And they're teasing us that he is not going to do it. And he's kind of, not do, but like, really, I do think like the fact that he puts his phone on the table is like, look, it says, take care, Dad. And they're like, what a betrayal.
It's a little warm.
It's a
take
little
care.
Bit of,
I love how he signs his text messages as well. That was very informative that he signed, take care, Roman. Yeah. So, I think, I agree with you, Grace. I think what's interesting is that I feel like Shiv and Kendall kind of should have known almost that Roman is the most waffly of them all, and that Roman wants to get out of this business relationship with his father so that he can build on their personal relationship, right? Once they're separated, once this deal goes through, in his mind, maybe they can have a semblance of a personal
Having
relationship.
rival news media definitely won't become.
They'll be fine.
No,
but
this is what Roman thinks.
And
really, literally, what Carrie says out loud is like Roman's inner monologue.
Yeah,
probably.
for real.
Yes, and that's what he wants, and so he thinks that's possible. And so I feel like the siblings should know better. and should really be keeping an eye on him and not pushing things to the extent that they are for their own selfish reasons, of course, but just not pushing things because he is the wobbly one. He is the one they need to be concerned about. And I think that meeting with their father, while Kendall may be smiling in his ride home and very pleased with how it all went, I think they should know that Roman has a little bit of a bleeding heart for Logan and is willing to go back like a dog that's been kicked many, many, many times over. I think that they read that situation very incorrectly.
So let's talk this through from the perspective of all of the Roy siblings in this episode, because I think that they all come to this from different vantage points. I think that they all want different things, which is, of course, exactly, what we expected was going to happen here, but maybe not quite this quickly. So we're talking a good bit about Roman already. I think I don't know how much this is a big revelation versus just kind of confirmation of a lot of what we've been tracking along the way. The abusive relationship between Logan and Roman gets called out by Kendall in the karaoke room. Roman plays it off. It's like, I'm annoying. Everyone hits me.
So awful.
It was horrible.
Self-deprecating, like just hand-waving child abuse, physical abuse. Yeah.
That was really sad. And I do think that, Roman is pretty consistent with going back to Logan in this regard, looking for love. You come to me with love. And I feel like that is the thing that boomerangs him back to Logan in this moment. So I feel like what's up with Roman is really sad and tragic, but fairly straight as far as how that character has been portrayed across the show thus far. I am really curious to get the room's take on Shiv and Kendall. And I think let's start with Shiv because she's really the one who starts this off. She's been sidebarring with Sandy, Jess, and apparently Sandy and Stewie and also Sandy have been, I guess Standy, we could just shorten it even further.
Actually, I don't think can stand anymore.
No, that's sad. Not anymore. But they'd been looking at the numbers. And they feel like they can get a better deal that they could
comparables,
the comparables.
Right.
So they're looking at the comparables. The numbers are not working out for this deal to be a yes for them. They want to get more out of this arrangement. For Shiv, Jess, how much of this is like a sensible deal versus she just wants to get back at the guy who she really hates her father right now. She doesn't feel too much more fondly towards Tom, and this collusion of wiping out all of the lawyers in town, all of the best divorce lawyers in town, really sits very poorly with Shiv. How much of this is like a tactical call versus this is a revenge plot for Shiv?
70% at least revenge, in my opinion. I think this is something we've seen from Shiv in the past. When Rhea screws her over, she has no problem confronting her face to face. I think Logan even says that she's a little bit spicy. She has that edge to her. This is, I think, I love looking at all of the Roy children as what they each individually got from Logan. Logan has a temper, so does Shiv. She is not afraid to burn everything down around her. And I think this was kind of it felt like last episode, the way we ended things with Shiv and Tom. I mean, I know it's very sad and she's decided I'm ready to move forward with the divorce. I don't even want to talk about it. But they do have this like holding hands moment where neither one of them is going to leave and get a hotel room. They're going to spend their seemingly last night together, not doing anything untoward, but laying in bed, holding hands together, both still wearing their rings, I might add. And so I think that she was of the mind of, okay, we're going to go forward with this amicably. But then Tom took the advice from her father, which was tie up all the good divorce lawyers in New York so that she can't get them. And that really set her off. I think this is almost fully revenge because when you see her in that room with Logan, again, shades of Austerlitz, where she is the one calling out her father. She is the one saying, I don't believe a word you say to us. You are a human gaslight. I just think that you can't go back, I think, with her. I think she's done. I don't think there's a way that she ever trusts Logan again, especially him turning her own husband on her. I mean, she pushed him away, but in her mind, I think Logan pulled Tom away from her.
Yeah.
And I just don't think there's any going back for Shiv at this point.
Yeah, Grace, we've got Jeff in the chat saying that Shiv's gone full Sith. All she has left is hate, revenge of the Shiv.
Wow, that's good. I like that. I agree, and I think that the clue here is the fact that she calls back Sandy with an eye to be like, "Hey, I want to touch, like, this is live again for me," because I think that if
So are
Shiv
we? We're live right
we're
now.
live right now on YouTube. Come join us. That I think that if Shiv hears it the first time and can tell that it's a good business deal, like I think we'll get to Kendall. I think Kendall sort of you know realize he gets the information that clues him in that like, oh, that's probably actually there's a reason why I should do this. And also like the side product will be revenge. But I think for Shiv, the main course is revenge. The side product happens to be maybe an extra $100 million. If that's the number Kendall throws out, what you're talking about, they're each going to get collectively they're going to get billions. I mean, it's so silly. When I talk about movies, I'm always like, it only made $100 million, as if that's not a ludicrous amount of money. But it's not that much money. They seem to think that they can.
These numbers are as tangible as literally as like the Force in midichlorians. Like it's unbelievable. It's ridiculous what they're talking about.
Because I think that like those are the two. I think there's those two. So one is revenge on their father to like stick the needle in, and the way they want to do it. There's a line that I think it's Kendall says this as well, which is, "This is what our dad would have done in his prime." And so I do feel like there's a little bit of wanting to prove that part of this, the very beginning is right that like Logan's out of touch. They need someone new to step in, and if they can show that, like basically prove to their own father that like, look, you're wrong, Matsson will renegotiate the deal and we'll get more money, it proves that maybe they're better at business than their father, which is of course the one thing that they would all love to have. I mean, other than his love, but I think that's, well, he does say he loves him this episode,
which I do think plays a part in Roman's decision.
They're not serious people.
I do think him saying "I love you" plays a part in Roman eventually visiting him later.
Yeah. So they all just want, if they can reopen the deal and Matsson pays more, it shows that maybe they have more business savvy than Logan thinks they do. So that's like the side product for Shiv, I think.
But when it comes to Kendall, so Kendall changes his tune when he gets this phone call from Lucas Matsson. And it's beyond just Matsson calling him K-Roy. It's beyond that. I think that he says, like, I'm told that sometimes I come across as intimidating, and this isn't a threat, but it is just what it is.
All of your family plays all villains in all media. You are intimidating.
Never trust a Skarsgård. I think we have to have learned this lesson by now.
Whenever you start a sentence with, "I'm not being aggressive, but..."
Yeah. So Kendall gets it directly from Matsson. Matsson says, if he pushes me, your father will sell, but it won't be to me. And he is really agitated, whether he admits it or not, when he says that. And Kendall is just standing there, taking it, absorbing it, super absorbent. He gets off the phone, and he is there on those stairs for a little while before he then goes and calls Stewie. And I think like that juxtaposed with how Logan is treated once he comes to karaoke and once he leaves, especially, and Kendall with like this like serene line delivery of like, I could have kept going. It's like, oh, this is dark. This is dismal.
That was as bad as when he's like, who's to say I haven't killed anybody? I'm like, stop, Ken. Stop, please.
I mean, maybe not quite that bad.
Kendall
really
rears his head again.
But it does feel like Kendall has he has tangible information from the first, like one of the most important firsthand sources that you can get in this situation from Matsson. I will not sell if he comes back at me and asks for more money. And Kendall still pushes. He chooses this road. Grace, is he not self-destructing? Is there a better plan that's going on here? Or is this pure like, the Buddhists say that you have to like shave off all of your wealth in order to become a truly rich man?
If I kill a Buddhist, so I come back as a Buddhist?
Like, what's he doing? What's going on?
I think this is a smart business read from Kendall that Matsson is terrified that he's going to have to pay more. And what do you do when you call and you say like, I'm not going to pay more. I know I should not be doing this, but I'm not paying more. So I could be totally wrong that the read is that Kendall is self-destructing, but like, I don't really know what Kendall gets at. I mean, you know, but then his father still owns this giant company. So I don't know. For me, the way I mostly read it was, if Matsson's afraid, I think that's he still wants it. So when he comes aggressive, that's to try and make sure that they don't come back. And the thing that you need to, this is the way Logan does business a lot, right? When there's a time when like someone's willing to just accept the first offer that Logan offers. He's like, okay, no, don't accept it. We're gonna lower the offer again. This is like, I feel like this was like a business move of Kendall seeing that they're actually, this is his read that Matsson will renegotiate and pay more for Waystar. That's my read, but I could be way wrong.
So then I think that there's like two options to take us to Gotham City, Jess. Kendall Roy either is Batman now, and he's the world's greatest detective, or he's the Joker. He's just looking to watch a pile of money.
When you put it that way, it definitely feels like he's the Joker.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's tough, and I kind of like that we don't necessarily know right away. We understand the other Roy Children's motives here, but we don't necessarily understand why Kendall's doing what he's doing, because he pauses for a second on the subway stairs and he thinks about it, and then he immediately texts Stewie and says, hey, send me those comparables. I want to take a look. I think the problem is, right, like, so because if he's reading it that, if we want to look at it like, okay, he's self-destructive, he knows Matsson's not going to give any more money, Logan is going to like not be able to get this deal go through, but then the Roy kids look terrible, right? They look bad for pushing
Pierce too.
Yeah, and they can't buy Pierce, and that really ruins them. So, I mean, the only other thing I do feel like I need to point out is Kendall is still drinking. Like, he is still actively involved in those things. We see when he goes to the bar, he's ordering drinks. At least it seems like he's ordering an alcoholic beverage for himself. So like, I don't
trying to track that, because he orders a vodka tonic, he orders the anything but a Hefeweizen for Connor, or was it a Hoegaarden? Anything but
I think it might have been a Hoegaarden.
Yeah, no Hoegaardens for Connor, even though he wants the drink of the common man. No Hoegaardens. And he gets a soda bitters, which as a non-drinking person is one of my beverages of choice. And so there was part of me that thought, was that his? Because I think Shiv says, do I dare do the house
she
red?
wanted like a seltzer,
but then she does pivot to like, I'll just take a bubble. So I didn't actually catch what Kendall ordered for himself.
I guess I just thought he was drinking because he was ordering so many drinks, but maybe not. I guess the point is that I don't really know how to read his motivation. And to me, that smile he has after they have the conversation with Logan, how he is so ready to fight Logan in the karaoke booth, right? Like, not physically, but he is ready to go toe to toe with Logan back and forth. To me, it feels vengeful. Like the emotion of it feels very vengeful.
I said this a lot last week with Amanda, that I think sometimes we look at it just like, what is the one thing that drives them, when like it's really like a pie chart, right? And there's like, you could be like 90% revenge and 10% like, I read something in Matt's and I think I can get I think I can get a deal that makes my dad look foolish. I'll get more money to help launch PGM, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is there anything there in that when Kendall goes back inside after having this conversation with Matsson, and he is now like with Shiv on pitching this, Roman says, no, I know Matsson will walk. Has he had a conversation with Matsson too? Something pinged in my brain of like, how many people has Matsson talked to about this?
Matsson, when he talks to Kendall, there's some familiarity there that feels like this isn't the first time they've talked in like a year, you know? So it feels like maybe there's been some correspondence there, and Matsson and Roman were even tighter. So it would not surprise me to learn that this is a big part of why Logan wants Roman to come to the Matsson meet, is specifically because like, you've got the relationship with Matsson. I need you. If we're going to survive what you've all done to me, then I need you to be part of this. So I do think that smile on Kendall's face, you've mentioned Austerlitz a couple of times, is the episode in season 1 where they do the group therapy at Connor's ranch, reminded me a lot of the end of that episode when Kendall is on the rock and he is getting high again, and he's just like, his bender is continuing. And I think about the self-confidence and the bravado that he had during that time and the moves that he made back then and the bear hug that he was willing to execute. And if not for the veritable execution of Andrew Dodds, the waiter, things probably go a very, very different way. And so just to be back and sort of thinking of Kendall sort of in that same vein is a scary thought. A lot of people can get hurt from Kendall Roy right now. I think I think we should be a little afraid of that look from Kendall.
Well, especially because if they're right, if the siblings are correct, and Matsson will pay more money, he is the killer that his dad accused him not to be. Right,
and it's in business too. It's not like legal, whatever. It's just like a full on business move.
And they said they said as much, right? They all said this isn't personal, and Logan, probably taking some cues from Carrie, is trying to make it personal, is trying to say, oh, I really missed you at my birthday party. I am Shiv in those moments saying, I don't believe a damn word coming out of his mouth. This is all for show. He's not coming to karaoke night to hang out on the eve of Connor's wedding.
Huge missed opportunity to not have Brian Cox belt out New York, New York. I would have loved that.
It's very good.
Imagine him going up there and being doing his own L to the OG.
Well, they would have had to get some paper boxes to put so you could have a stand in there. Yeah, I think for
sprinkle a little sugar on his performance ahead of time.
I said that the thing I most want for Kendall is to be content. Like, I think that's a thing he needs, is just to be like okay for a while, like the full if that like smile is like a Joker smile, that terrifies me, because like I don't want Kendall to become Logan, and essentially like if this move works, it's like he becomes closer to being Logan in a way where he's like got rid of Logan. So maybe the thing that scares me so much.
It's not Batman and the Joker. Maybe the duality exists within one character. Is Kendall Roy Harvey Dent?
Wow.
Should he have died a hero because he's going to live long enough to see himself become the villain?
I don't like that. How was that? I want him to get out and be content.
Keep the coins out of his hands.
Kendall just doesn't seem the type to ever be content, I think, is the problem. Right? Like, he says he needs something super absorbent. I can understand, as someone who maybe watched the last episode 6 times this week, like when you get
you did it one more time past the wrap-up podcast, where you watched it 5 times.
I had to watch it before this episode came on tonight, as like a preview, as a moose boosh. The problem is that, like, when you are like that, when you have that type of addictive personality, there always has to be something. And so even
that's what he says, the super absorbent.
I'm just thinking about the end, though. I know people don't change, but like, could that have been could that have been to trick us, and that these people will change? Can Roman have a spine? Can Kendall be content? Can Shiv? I don't know what she needs.
Fair question. Let's talk about Connor Roy, who I think that this has to be the most sympathetic Connor Roy episode we have ever received. His whole comment about being the rock that eats the insects and doesn't live on love and has been ignored his whole life. He gets double tapped when Kendall is reading his father, The Riot Act, where it's not just you ignored Connor his entire life, but he like institutionalized his mother, it sounds like.
This is interesting, because I had watched an interview with Alan Bruck earlier this week, where I couldn't tell by the phrasing of what he said whether or not the mother was institutionalized, or he was saying like, oh, I was off at boarding schools and whatnot. But this is fascinating information, and I don't think it's ever been mentioned before. We've not known a ton about Connor's mother, and
what alluded to. It
was alluded to in the season 3 penultimate, I think, when Comfrey is telling Kendall all of the things about this podcast that's out there.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So this is fascinating, and I agree with you. This is the most I've ever felt for Connor, and it's not just because like Willa's questioning whether or not she wants to be with him. It's that when it's never about Connor. He's never roped into anything. It's partially Roman's fault that Logan is even at the karaoke bar in the first place, because he's like, hey, let's loop in Connor. Connor just wants to have a beer with his family. Connor wants to have a fun night before his wedding. He wants to have a fun bachelor party with his friends, with quote unquote real people in real America, with people whose hands sweat. And his family can't even be there for him. They're too busy trying to take down their father together. It's really sad.
His moment, Grace, when they're like, okay, I guess we're voting no. And he's just like, God damn it.
Well, he's been silent the whole time, right? It's so funny.
Mhm.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's just I think for me, line of the episode comes when they're talking about being the Beatles, and Roman's talking about which member of the Beatles he is. He says,
Stop
"No,
talking
I'm
about how you're McCartney and Lennon. I'm John.
I'm Ringo. Shiv is
Yoko.
Ringo. You're Yoko. Connor is someone who won a raffle at an auction."
Horrific.
Con's still Con. Yeah, it's too good. It's too good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is sad, and also like, of course, this is what Willa's thinking of. Like, she didn't say yes. She said, "F it." She said, "F it." She said, "Yeah, I'll do it." She gets paid by Connor. Like, it's the magic trick of the show to make me feel sympathy for Connor Roy, who is like trying to become president of the United States. That I feel sympathy for this man, but I do. What a performance! That's a really good. This is the one I think they could nominate him for best supporting actor.
Especially
really good.
Especially when he's saying that, you know what, I don't need love. When you're from a family that doesn't give love, like, you just kind of learn to live without it. And if Willa comes back, that's fine too, because if she doesn't love me, I don't need it.
Yeah.
That was so hard to hear.
Is that one going to be in the Avengers? The next Avengers?
Yeah.
Connor Roy.
Yeah. I believe
really
it's called
sad.
Love Rock. That's the name of the character.
For someone who is not very self-aware most of the time as a character, Connor really is spitting some hard facts here when he says these things. I would disagree with the fact that he, quote unquote, doesn't need love, because maybe love and attention aren't the same things, but he certainly needs attention a lot of the time. Of course.
I mean, it's a very wounded thing that he says from a lifetime of this kind of abuse, and it's really spilling out. And, you know, that is part of the secret sauce of this show, is that even Logan Roy, this was the thing from last week that really stood out to me. Like, these are all still people who are just like living in their childhood hurt. They have just not been able to move on. They have not been able to mature, but they also are full-blown adults who have their hands on the nuclear codes. So how bad do you feel for them, / how afraid of them should you be sometimes? But I do think there are these moments where you're like, God, you never had a chance. And this episode really was that for me with Connor, where it really makes sense to me why the person who was clearly he was not raised by his mother, it sounds like. He was not raised by his father. We know that this is the kind of guy that would become, you know, like a debate me bro, because he needs to have the power in these conversations of like, I'm Rock, I beat scissors every time. I'm Love Rock, I beat scissors every time. And it's, you know, pretty, you know, hard to withstand some of Connor's commentary along the way and some of his positions and his Napoleonic fascination, though there is something to this idea of like the Napoleon complex within the very tall Alan Ruck, that he has been made to feel this tall. For the non-YouTube people, my fingers are pretty close together. And that has haunted him his whole life. So he comes out here and he says what he says. And maybe he even wants to mean and believe in what he says, that he doesn't need love. Obviously he does. Obviously it's like the thing he's never had. And even Willa is now like the person like, I had to buy love. That's what I had to do. And so there's like, obviously Willa is having her crisis with everything, but I think we're seeing Connor's crisis with it. And Grace, I think to your point of like, this was a supporting actor nod worthy episode for Connor Roy. I can't wait for the wedding day.
I know.
Who knows?
I mean, it does seem like by the end of the episode, Willa is like putting Connor's arm around her, you know, like they're in bed together. I think it's really brutal for Shiv is basically like, maybe you gotta let Willa go. And Roman,
like, Con.
They're sorry.
Connor.
Yeah.
You can't do better than Willa.
Yeah, you're not gonna do better than Willa. I'm like, this is so brutal. Like the marriage is falling apart the night before. And they're like, you gotta do it. You can't get better than her. I was like, it's so
because what if she actually leaves? Then he's gonna be like, oh, I guess I can't do better than Willa.
I know,
it's really brutal. It's a really brutal night for Connor. But even at the same time, you're kind of like, Willa, run and throw your phone in a lake while you're at it.
Seems like maybe she did in the river, maybe.
Yeah.
She has a habit of throwing Apple products into bodies of water.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah. So who knows?
Yeah.
Let's go over to ATN and talk about everything that's happening there, because Logan is hot on the heels of losing Pierce. Feels like it's the very next day, because we know that the Gojo deal is. So I think it has to be the very next day. So they made it from LA to Albany in a day. Wow, that PJ really flies fast. Jess, you should have said hi. You were so close.
Every time Albany gets shouted out on a show, something inside of me screams just a little bit. I was very excited. They're nearby.
They were very close by. But Logan has decided, all right, all aboard. He is on the ghost ship ATN. Even before he said, "You're pirates, Grace," I felt like I was watching like a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Like it felt like Davy Jones just invaded by Succession episode.
2 weeks in a row where I feel like they're really stretching Brian Cox out for the last, because he has this like very interesting, like, this is more like him, but this diner scene last episode, which is quiet and introspective in a way we haven't seen from Logan Roy before. And then this one is like, he does yell, but normally he just yells F off. He doesn't give a whole speech the whole time. I thought it was very, he clearly set Tom up, right? Like, you sugar me up, and then he's just like, yeah, 3%, and that poor man in the front row, he's like, it's 40%.
You got a good head for math.
Yeah.
Is that the same guy who he said, like, don't strain yourself after the one email?
I believe so, the one email. This is like somebody who like has worked in an office and worked in these type of settings, where though not in like a business, I work for nonprofit, so it's not the same, but like there's some energy to like just like office, and like when your boss is just hanging around, like, or like
when your boss when
like
the CEO is standing and looking over your shoulder as you're typing an email.
I want to start showing up at people's podcasts on post-show recaps wearing sunglasses and just hanging around in the background. Nightmare. Like, you did one podcast just now.
It's like
don't strain
like
yourself.
Jaws. If everyone in Jaws worked for Jaws.
Yeah, this was intense. This felt like a villain monologue. This whole speech from Logan. It was kind of terrifying. I'm not gonna lie.
Horrifying, but at the same time, Logan Roy is also a coward, right? And this episode, I think, really illustrates it quite well with everything that's going on with Carrie, so now Carrie is coming into focus in a really interesting way. And just to give a shout out, my Hollywood Reporter interview this week is with Zoe Winters, who plays Carrie, who was wonderful to talk to, really, really fun. Does an insane amount of prep for Carrie.
Did she pull you apart like human string cheese, Josh?
She's pulled the character apart like human string cheese. She has 500 pages of documents on Carrie.
That is impressive.
As part of her prep. So you can go to postshowrecaps.com/THR. That's the link for all my Hollywood Reporter stories. Give that one a read. It was a really fun interview to do. But we're seeing that she's had this I want to be a news anchor during a wartime presidential election ambition all along. And one of the things about Carrie, as much as we've known her, Grace, is that she has been like this very impressive person to Logan. She has, risen the ranks. She has this very bit role in season 2, even, that people, I think, forget. I know we were shocked when we saw Carrie for the first time in season 2, because she's such a season 3 fixture and beyond. She always seems like someone who is going to be hard to defeat. She goes up to Greg at the birthday brunch and really takes Greg apart like human string cheese. And now here we see her being the butt of the joke. And one of my favorite moments of the episode is Hugo and Jerry are watching the video. And Hugo does not want to open up the laptop. What he does, he just like, it's like he has already.
Why'd you plug it in, Hugo? Why'd you plug it in?
Just open the laptop first and then bring the browser down and then you plug the laptop in.
He's like, he's calculated just how far he needs to like go on the trackpad to hit X as quickly as humanly possible. But Logan sees it, which is a great moment. But Carrie is bad at this, Grace, and Logan knows it, but he doesn't want to say it because that would be bad. I can't be involved in this.
Can't know. I think it's really interesting. I thought it's almost like in a horror movie when like the when you don't see the monster and it's way more terrifying, and then once you see the monster,
like Super 8.
you're like, uh-oh, I guess that's fine now. This movie,
it's like Super 8. Oh, this is a cool movie. Wait, really?
Wait, what? Yeah.
That?
It's kind of how I felt that I almost feel bad for Carrie that this, that the video is so bad. It's so bad. How do the Roy kids have the video? It's also who shared
that? They're shareholders, so I guess it circulates.
Is they part of the focus group? Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
They watched it again, by the way. They finished the reel and they're like, we got to do that again. They were like John Locke with the orientation video.
Jess has not you, Jess. That Jess is like has such a bad episode when like she's like, we gotta go, and then when the helicopter gets canceled, she's like trying to find a car. Rough episode for Jess. But yeah, I think this Carrie stuff. I still think she is terrifying in the meeting with Greg. I mean, she does get like fired from being an anchor, but also like Greg does not accomplish the task of like getting her to realize it's like she definitely knows Logan was involved. Like she says this, Logan hates it. Like I think this could be bad in the same way that sort of like when Logan has had to break up with somebody, sort of like, he's had these like that he broke up with Marcia, but he has to settle with Marcia. Rhea Jarrell is like,
that's the cleanest we've seen.
I think
the cleanest breakup is Rhea Jarrell, and she was about to be CEO and she walked away, and that was high profile.
Yeah. So I think that this could be really bad news for Logan. The fact that like Carrie's not good at being an anchor, and the way that the whole like firing, like not letting her be an anchor goes down.
Well, and it's
not great.
It gets worse when she's in the meeting with the siblings and they know Logan is the one who had it's straight from Logan's playbook.
Yeah,
they say you've been had, he got you fired. Do you not realize this? And after that meeting with the kids, she is much colder to Logan. She barely says a word when they're walking on the sidewalk.
Separate cars,
and it's very intriguing that I feel like they put there's a little bit of blood in the water here after that meeting with the kids, where she already was knowing that Logan was involved, but hearing them say, he's done this to us. You're not immune to this. He did this. He betrayed you. I think this is, I don't know. I feel like they're really propping up Carrie to be a pretty big character. I mean, she was last season, and I feel like they're doing even more with her this season. So I feel like she's going to be involved somehow in like Logan's downfall.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that she's clearly a very ambitious person who knows where a lot of the bodies are buried. Yeah. So I don't, there's just so much that needs to be done with only 8 episodes left now. The clock is ticking. Is there room for a big Carrie revenge storyline? Or does this just become like another illustrative example of even late in life, Logan Roy is still pulling this shit? So I'm not sure where it's going to land, but it was compelling. And just like the whole pirating around ATN, and Logan's getting a good hate into some of these people. He's getting a good hate into Jerry.
Why is she not invited to the meeting with Mattson?
Absolutely fallout from what happened with Roman. 100% what happened with Roman. Roman is needed at the Mattson meeting. He does not want Roman and Jerry in the same space together. That's very clear to me.
This is so annoying. I'm frustrated.
Because he's going to invite, because he's inviting, he knows he's going to invite Roman to the meeting. He knows Roman will come, so he can't.
I can't have my son who, sexually harassed.
Roman shows the text there. And he says, "Oh, it's fine. I'm just full of dick pics."
That was so funny.
I also thought a missed opportunity for coming. I definitely thought the scene where Greg has to go fire Carrie, and he says, "We've seen the tape." He talks about the tape, and I thought for sure his sex tape that he has made for Logan. I thought definitely there's gonna be like miscommunication about which tape they were talking about, but no, that's this show's too classy for that.
Yeah, a little classy for this. Well, that's, I think, most of the first pass at this episode. Of course, we've got some live listener feedback from the people who are here watching us on YouTube. So we'll get into that. And if you've got anything you want to throw our way, feel free to do so if you are watching live. If you are not watching live, but you want to get feedback in, go to postshowrecaps.com/rateroy. That is still our feedback form for all things Succession. You can rate each character from every episode. You can rate the episodes as well. And you can give us your takes on each episode, and we will bring them into the podcasts throughout the week. So let's get into some of the live listener feedback from Jeff. Jeff says, Greg thinks he handled Carrie well, and so does Nicholas Braun. So I don't know if either of you watched the after the episode, but yeah, Nicholas Braun was feeling pretty good about how cousin Greg handled all of that.
I think he's just happy that Greg gets to fire someone, and I don't blame him. This is his 4th season, and he's always the punching bag.
Jess, did you see how happy he was during Logan's speech? That is so scary. That little smile on Greg's face as he's happy about Logan's pirate speech. I didn't like that at all.
He loved it. Yeah.
This is bad. This is bad. I don't know that this season's going to end well for little Greg.
Yeah, he wants to be. I don't think that he has Captain Hook aspirations, but he for sure wants to be Smee.
Yeah, he's a Smee.
Yeah, cousin Smee. I think it's something that he's looking for. This is from Andrew, who wrote in. Andrew says, I thought Jerry leaked the video to the siblings.
I can see that being true.
What do we think about that as a possibility, Jess?
It's a possibility.
Yeah, certainly. I think they have friends still at Waystar that would leak that, or ATN at least, that would leak that information no matter what. So
yeah. This comes our way from Danny. Danny says, Roman's conversation with Logan was way too relaxed and natural. That definitely wasn't their first little chat in the past few months where the 3 siblings supposedly promised no contact. Grace, do you think that it's beyond the rather warm text message exchange? Do you think that Roman and Logan have had further contact than we know? Or that the siblings know?
It's my dad's birthday. I gotta say, take care.
Take care.
No, it's not my dad's birthday. I don't know that I read it as it being. I say this a lot. That I think Succession is a show that puts its cards on the table a lot. That because we put the text messages on the phone on the table, and that I do feel like, and then they kind of save mystery for a finale. I feel like they're pretty, I think, open about what's happening, so that then they can withhold information in the finale and have you be surprised. So I kind of, until we hear that they've met, I think that that's true, that this was kind of their first meeting since. I think they're just awkward. So I don't know. Yeah.
Will Jess writes in and says, just cast the siblings as the Fantastic Four. Connor's already a rock.
Isn't he a plant that lives on a rock?
Yeah, so I don't know.
With dead insects inside?
That's a little more Swamp Thing. So I think, but Swamp Thing, they're casting Swamp Thing actively. That's in the universe.
And all the rest of the Fantastic Four, they're the needy love sponges, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's perfect.
They're all a bunch of Franklin Richards clones looking for their father Reed's love. That's what's going to happen in 2024's Fantastic Four. From Alex says, pretty sure that Kendall wants to blow up the deal. This is the big thing. Like, this is like the new, is Kendall dead?
Yeah.
For me? It's like, I'm waiting for further information, but in this coming week, I am going to be entertaining both sides of this conversation. Kendall Roy, is he being very business savvy, or is he being very business savvy and is trying to blow up the game? I don't know.
It's just, I think it's hard for us to know, because especially with the time jump from seasons 3 to 4, I feel like I don't exactly know where Kendall's head is at. He's thrown me off a little bit with like the sunflower seeds when he walks and he's like, hey, Romy, I want to start a business with you, brother. Yeah. Like the way he's talking is just so strange and like almost Californian, right? Like this is
Californian here. That's my impression that I've never got to put on a podcast, actually.
Take the 405.
This is the California Kendall. So I don't really know how California Kendall moves forward with like New York deals.
Stewie?
What are you doing?
Was it just me, or did he sound very like Mrs. Piggy when he goes, he's like, Romy, like the way anyway, it's very strange. I don't know how to make heads or tails of it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think it'd be very fun to discuss. And you know what, like I need to, this is the trick of, again, another trick of the show is just I need to just think that they're all changing and something like that, like they're learning,
they're getting better,
and that like the Kendall's doing this because it's a good business deal. That also will be terrible, but like I don't want him to self-destruct, you know? I really don't want Kendall Roy to self-destruct.
I mean, he's showing up at a rehearsal dinner in like literally olive green sweatshirt and hat. What is happening?
That's just his vibe.
I hate this.
It's just his vibe. That's what he's got going on.
Mhm.
As we're winding down, I thought this was fun from Chloe. I like that this live chat is not one of your usual stupid places. It's somewhere fun and real, away from the fancy dance. A real place with chicks and guys who work with their hands and grease.
I mean, I have sweaty hands if it helps.
She pronounced Grace, not Grace.
And with Grace later here on the podcast. No, we've had a blast here on the live show. As Matt puts it, this feels like old school PSR with a live video recap after an HBO show. Matt continues to ask, just out of curiosity, does Rob still watch Succession? Oh, Matt, do I have terrific news for you and anyone else who's wondering that question. Rob and I are talking about Succession every single week, midweek on the Rob and Josh show. And that is just one of the many different podcasts we are doing here on Succession. So let's list it out as we start wrapping up. This was the first reaction stations. We get live on YouTube, postshowrecaps.com/YouTube to break the episode down immediately after it airs. Grace is going to be with Dr. Amanda every week. The deep dive into the episode, Mike Bloom joining them this time around. Grace is going to join me with Latanya Starks on the Post Show Recaps Versus podcast this week, where we will be comparing and contrasting Succession episode 2 with Yellow Jackets episode 2 this week, which I think is going to be a very fun conversation. Then I'm getting together with Rob. Rob and I are going to break down episode 2 of Succession as well and get into all of his thoughts on the episode. And we will close out the week with another wrap-up show looking back at week 2, all of the ridiculous headlines that are sure to ensue, Reddit theories, any feedback that all of you have. You can submit that. postshowrecaps.com/rateroy is the way to do that. That's postshowrecaps.com/rateroy. You can get all of these podcasts when you sign up at postshowrecaps.com/succession. That is our RSS link if you want to search by URL in your podcast player of choice. If you also just want to search Post Show Recap Succession, boom, you found us. Congratulations. We would love for you to join the party, subscribe, ratings and reviews, tremendously appreciated by everybody here on the Post Show Recaps team. If you could afford some time in your day to do so, and if you can afford to become a patron of Post Show Recaps, we'll make it worth your while. Among the ways we will make it worth your while, every single Succession podcast that we put out for this final season, ad-free for the patrons of Post Show Recaps. Grace, it's a good deal.
It's a good deal. We're needy love sponges, so please.
Yes. Let us sponge up your love and also your money when you go to patreon.com/Post Show Recaps. At any level, you'll get the ad-free versions of these Succession podcasts. I'm at Round Howard, wherever you can find me on the internet. Grace, where are you?
At Hi from Grace.
And Jess?
At the Jess Sterling.
All right, folks, I think that this is the part where normally I say F off, but I would like to say goodbye in a more warm fashion, and I'll just say, take care. And F off!